Next on Rugby Wrap-Up's MLR Weekly, a Major League Rugby 2025 extravaganza with John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning and Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News. Plus, Will Hooley comes on from the Rugby Rundown. Rugby Wrap-Up's MLR Weekly brought to you by Sheehy Auto Stores. It's easy at Sheehy. The Pig and Whistle, New York City, the world's best rugby pub. And Lean and Limber, stretching your way to a healthier lifestyle.
There is a massive responsibility on the 23 that are privileged enough to step out on that field today.
Let's get it started with our Major League Rugby Spectacular. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see on your screens that we have John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning and Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News on at the same time. Usually it's John Fitzpatrick that starts the show with his Rugby Morning coffee break, and Bryan ends it with his wisdom from America's Rugby News and Ray's Rugby. But today we have an MLR 2025 Spectacular, and we're all going to be in on this together. And what we're going to do is we're going to weigh in on the Western Conference teams and the Eastern Conference teams to give you some semblance of what you can count on or see in the upcoming season, like we know what we're talking about. Let's start with whether or not a team will qualify for the playoffs based on what they did in the off season. We're going to start in the Western Conference, and why not start all the way in the Pacific Northwest, up in the left-hand corner of our nation, just under Bryan's Canada, with the Seattle Seawolves that have been in the league since day one.
Matt, I am concerned about the loss of fly half Mac Mason. He's back down on the farm in Australia. Phenomenal talent, just a cool operator for them all season long. I'm concerned. Yes, they did make some changes. They brought in Rodney Iona and Eddie Fouché, but Mac Mason was the heart and soul of that team there. I'm concerned that they're not going to be able to fill his shoes.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think Mason is a massive loss. On top of that, they've got Rickard Hatting and Charles Elton coming back from serious injuries, and it doesn't look like they're going to be 100% to start the season. That's a blow to the side. Tavite Lepete has gone to San Diego. I think they've lost some key bodies. Are they going to fall out of the playoffs? No, I don't think so. I mean, they were in the final, but they're not going to be the force they were last season.
Let's go south, geographically. To L.A.? No, let's go to Utah.
I think Utah is the one team in the Western Conference that won't make the playoffs this year. They've had some wholesale changes. Of course, the biggest one has to be the fact that Michael Manson is no longer with Utah. He earned a contract for Super Rugby. Good for him. You still have some core pieces there. Joel Hodgson, of course. Joey Amano is fun to watch. Dylan Nell. He was suspended for about 6 games at the end of last season. But I think Utah is going to be on the outside looking in on the playoffs. They'll probably knock off a team here and there, but they're probably the team in the Western Conference that I would count on not making the playoffs.
Well, only one team is going to miss out in the West. I think it's going to be a really tight race for that last spot. I would certainly agree that Utah is one of those teams who will be in that race trying to make the playoffs. Like, I wouldn't call them an automatic selection. I'm not even sure that Joel Hodgson is going to be their 10. I think D'Angelo Luila might get the nod there. He did in the preseason. They cut so many guys who are, stalwarts from that team. So it's a completely different side. On paper, their top 15 looks decent, but are they going to be fit for the whole season? Do they have the depth to compete over the course of the season? I think a lot of questions for Coach Greg Cooper this season. So we'll see. I think they'll be on the cusp.
Los Angeles, RFCLA, RCFLA, something, Riflitka. Bryan, are they improved enough to make the playoffs?
I think so. I think they've added a lot of talent. I think Steve Hoyle's coming in is going to change that team a lot. He clearly wants to play an expansive team. They got the back line is going to be absolutely amazing, whoever they put on the field. The question is the forwards going to win enough ball to do that? So I wouldn't put them at the top of the West, but I think they're in that third or fourth kind of mix.
Yeah, I think, with Sam Harris joining there too, any Sam Harris-led team, they will score a lot of points. Chicago scored a ton of points last year. Austin, obviously, a few years before that. RFCLA, though, last year, one of the teams that had the most yellow cards or red cards. Seemingly, just about every single game, they were down a man or two in every stretch of the game. They will be a fun team to watch. I'm excited to see Christian Dyer, what he's going to do, if he's going to actually get the ball in LA. Matt, fun team to watch. I peg them as my dark horse. I think they may surprise a few folks. I don't think that's a hot take. I think a lot of people are excited about some of the additions they made in the offseason.
What about Reese McDonald?
No, the early word is that we're not going to see Reese until like April at the earliest. He's got a shoulder surgery he's recovering from. So he's going to miss half the season we're looking at. But, I mean, they've got Vogan Isaacs. They got Royer Van Voot to fill in at fullback anyway. So it's not like they're, short on talent. So when Reese comes back, he's a 15, bonus.
Your boy Andrew Koch could drop into 15.
But why, you don't even have to when you've got those two other guys there. They're literally stacked with talent in that back line. Any configuration is going to be good.
I just wanted to get Andrew Koch some airtime. He's a friend. Okay. All right. Okay. I think LA is going to be a much improved team. I think they're going to be a playoff contender. Absolutely. I don't see them finishing last in that conference if they stay healthy, because I said the same thing last year about LA and everybody got hurt as the words came out of my mouth. So we'll see. Again, health, nutrition, all that stuff weigh in. Let's go down to San Diego.
Back to Torero Stadium. Familiar place for San Diego Legion fans. I don't know if that's an upgrade or not. But, San Diego. Matt or Bryan, who's going to play fly half there for San Diego? That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah, I would expect Lincoln McClutchy to be the 10, although Ethan Grayson has been playing 10 and 15 for Newcastle, so I would expect him to maybe be a surprise choice at one of those two positions instead of the midfield for San Diego. They've already had an injury.
Yeah, but how will he kick when it's not raining? Playing in Newcastle. I mean, he's going to L.A. He's going to be totally a fish out of water.
Matt, you had the hot take. I'm going to take reins here for a second. You had the hot take that San Diego's not going to make the playoffs. Explain to us why.
I think they've had a lot of changeover, and I don't necessarily think that they've had changeover that is negative. I like the improvements the other teams have made, and Utah is that dark horse for me. Utah might surprise some people, or they might be poop, as Bryan pointed out. So if Utah is not poop, I think one of the teams that has to be out, and it's going to be San Diego. Last but not least, the team with the best record in the league at 14-2 last year that had the early exit courtesy of those Dallas Jackals that have since departed the league, the now defunct Dallas Jackals, the Houston SaberCats. Bryan.
I don't see anybody in the West stopping Houston from being at the top of the division this year. I think they're far and away the most complete squad. They've got continuity going for them. They've had some, the players they have brought in are all significant players, starting quality types. So I think Houston runs away with the Western Conference title.
What do we take out of that result in the exhibition season against the Chicago Hounds?
I don't think the score is really that significant. I just think this is, maybe you could say
61-19 is significant if you're playing for Chicago.
But they're playing 96 minutes. Who knows what kind of, lineup is playing against starters, against reserves. Who knows? I wouldn't put too much stock in that. I just think they've got continuity in their side. They're going to have players coming in. Rufus McLean is a quality guy. He'll be straight into the Eagles this year. I think maybe if there's one question is maybe they could use another front rower perhaps to fill out that squad. But the competition for spots, talent across the board, I just think they're too deep and well drilled. The question is now, can they win the playoffs?
Yeah, I think they were a little pissed off. They got popped in the mouth by Dallas last year. They were steamrolling through that Western Conference. I see them going all the way to the MLR Shield, representing the Western Conference.
I think Houston, if they stay healthy, are the team to beat. But Seattle is my second team, or 1A and 1B. All right, let's take a break, and we'll come back, and we'll talk about the Eastern Conference after this.
Digs like a demented mole there.
Need a great price on a new vehicle? Sheehy makes it easy. Easy Price shows you our lowest prices on the Mid-Atlantic's largest selection. Find your best price online or at any of our 31 dealerships.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
How you doing? I'm Jim Hamilton. I'm at the Pig and Whistle. I'm at the famous Pig and Whistle. Look, I've got my rucksack on. I'm a well-known man around the world as one of the best rugby players to have ever played the game. No, I'm not. It's a lie. But we've got Paul O'Connell's montage on the wall. I've heard a lot about this place, and I'm here. Make sure, though, that you come here, but you also tune in to Rugby Wrap-Up.
All right, we're back with Mr. Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News and, of course, John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning. Gentlemen, let's continue on now with the Eastern Conference.
Wait, how come I don't get Mr. John Fitzpatrick? Why the disrespect?
I know that you're more casual than Bryan, and we're fellow Americans, so we have that secret handshake where Bryan...
Are you the elder statesman? What should I call you? Grandfather McCarthy?
Call me Pappy. Pappy McCarthy. Okay, you can call me Pappy. All right, so let's start with the reigning champions looking for the three-peat like the Kansas City Chiefs. We saw how that went. Bryan, your New England Free Jacks. Postseason, no problem.
Three-peat. They're the best team in the Eastern Conference. Houston in the final is my prediction, and I mean, they just look better than last year. I mean, you know, they've pretty well replaced everybody that lost. They got Geronimo Gomez-Vara, one of the best forwards in MLR, has joined the team. Vian Conradi's fit again. You know, they lost Reese McDonald, yes, but he's missing half the season for LA. He's in the other conference, so, you know, it could be worse. I think Simon Peter Toliafola is going to turn some heads as their fullback this season. Free Jacks, top of the East.
Yeah, certainly New England's the top contender in the Eastern Conference, but I won't necessarily give him that three-peat title quite yet. I know we can't take much into preseason results, and Miami did beat New England in the preseason last year, but I think McDonald's going to be a big loss. Mitch Wilson, too. He was a great locker room guy. They're going to sorely miss him there. Ryan Martin, new head coach there. Yes, obviously very familiar with the system there, but let's not anoint them. Let's not give them the crown quite yet. Come on. Let's hold the suspense a little bit.
Well, yeah, sure. I'm going to just say the no-name Free Jacks just keep doing it with different people. It's a pop-up organization. I think they win the East. Whether they win the championship might be another thing. But right now, I think they're the strongest team in the league. Let's go to Toronto. Oh, no. They're out. Let's go to New York. No. Oh, nobody in New York either. Let's skip right down the Eastern Quarter and go to John's Washington, D.C., Old Glory, D.C. And John, since you're from there, let Bryan start.
I think my concerns are probably the same as everybody. You know, they basically took last year's squad, which wasn't quite good enough, and added very little. They boosted the midfield, which needed a boost, but that's really about it. And they've got weaker in the front row, which is a problem for me. So I just don't see Old Glory. And they didn't play any preseason games. I know what the reasoning was. I don't agree with it. I think they're going to have a slower start as a result. I just don't see Old Glory challenging for any top spot. I think they're going to be in a fight to make that fourth spot in the playoffs.
John, I can see the tears just streaming down your cheeks right now. And I want to give you an opportunity to respond to our esteemed colleague, Mr. Bryan Ray.
Yeah, I would just go back to last week's episode, the interview with head coach Simon Cross. He talked about continuity being the theme here. So this is a team who made the playoffs the last 2 years, coming up just short both times against New England last year. They went up, smacked New England in the mouth, won there by a point. Of course, they did cough up a lead in the second half and lost down here in Maryland to end the regular season. And then, you know, they lost to New England by 4 in that Eastern Conference first round there. This is a team, though, I think that is building something. Jack Cascaro, Jamison Fonana Schultz, Corey Daniel, Tommaso Boni, Captain Men's Eagles, Ethan McVie just holding it down.
What about your captain?
I'm getting there, buddy. Oh. Rob Harley's at Scotland International. We saw him at Washington, D.C. Youth Rugby fundraiser on Friday. Saw your boy Duma. But I think everyone is very excited about Splashy Edition, which is all well and good. Let's see what it looks like on the field. Old Glory DC quietly and confidently will return to the playoffs in the Eastern Conference.
And again, Old Glory DC with the most domestic players other than the anthem. Okay, so just save your little notes on Reddit, everybody. I hadn't finished, and these two are already pouncing on me. Okay, but that's a significant thing, because the philosophy of that team is to work in step with USA Rugby and develop some Eagles. Whether you agree with that or not is a different topic. But I hear from both of you, so I'm split between the two of you on this, and I think they make the playoffs. Next, the Anthem Carolina North, RC.
Again, I like what they're doing down there. They made some nice additions there. Mitch Wilson certainly being one of them. Sam Gala being another. Who's going to play fly half for them? I'd like to see Line Latu. He played pretty well for the American Raptors. But Bryan Ray, I just don't see Anthem being a playoff team. I think they will get their first wins in Major League Rugby. I think they will be a very competitive bunch, but I think they'll be on the outside looking in as it relates to the playoffs.
Yeah, much improved from last season. I can see them getting 3 or 4 wins. I think Cliven Lobser will be the primary number 10 to start, and then we'll see how Latu does coming off the bench. I think they could use another body there if they can find another domestic guy to bring in as well. I think they're going to play a lot of exciting rugby. They got some great talent in there. Hopefully a couple more guys put their hands up, but they're not going to make the postseason, but they'll be entertaining.
You know what? They have been putting Eric Storty, the number 1 draft choice, if I'm saying his name correctly, at 10, which to me doesn't make any sense because of his long play is going to be to make the Eagles. And I'm quoting or paraphrasing from our friend Will Hooley about this. Storty, is this his fast track to the Eagles? Because he's not necessarily a 10. So what's the messaging there?
I don't know what that decision is. I see him as a 13 or a 15. I don't see him as a 10 at all. So that's a strange move to me.
I think we're just we're desperately seeking that American sounding number 10, and I don't know that we're going to find him anytime soon. But hey, we'll see what happens. I just don't want to see a kid tinkered with. It's like the NFL bringing up a quarterback too early and throwing him into the mix. All right, let's go to Chicago, John.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago, that back line alone is super exciting. Even when they bring the subs on, there's no loss in talent. Michael Hand, Noah Brown, Ben Pollock. Bryan was raving about him a couple of weeks ago. Nate Osberger, Julian Dominguez. I mean, you could go on and on. It's an exciting addition. Chicago made the playoffs last year. They'll certainly be in contention again this year. A couple other capped Eagles on that squad. Chicago's going to be a tough bunch. Probably challenge New England and DC for the top 3.
Bryan.
Yeah, I like them too. And Ben Pollock, if he stays healthy, I think he's a certain selection for the Eagles. I think he's one to watch at fullback for them. They got depth everywhere, competition for spots. Just across the board, they look a stronger team this year. I think they look good. If there's a team in the East, I think that can challenge New England, I think it's Chicago.
And who's the number 10?
Well, it could be Tim Sweel. It could be Christopher Hilsenbeck, who's just been announced as coming over. And they've also got Kean Meaden. They've also got Adrian Carlson. They've also got Sam Walsh. So, whoever emerges from that. But I would say Sweel or Hilsenbeck are the most experienced. So one of those two.
And that's Chris Latham at the helm of that squad. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But I agree with you guys. Chicago looks very formidable, and I would not say anything differently because I'm afraid of Dylan the Butcher Fawcett showing up at my door and giving me the scowl. All right, let's go to NOLA, who your coach, Simon Cross, John, last week on this program said have a lot of pressure on them because of that powerful, excellent roster. John.
Yeah, I mean, they brought in a lot of players, top 14 experience. I hope, Matt, you bone up on your French pronunciations when you go down there to announce a game. Yeah, NOLA Gold certainly got stronger. They got an infusion of some new cash with some ownership there. They built out the whole forward, far-reaching game plan. A lot to be excited about if you're a NOLA Gold fan. They're going to be a contending team. They made the playoffs for the first time last year. Will they be in the hunt this year? Yeah, of course they will. Again, NOLA Gold will be a playoff contending team.
All right, Paul Mullen, the captain of the Irish tanning team, they're going to have to be very careful with sunblock for him. Bryan.
Yeah, NOLA's kind of has this thing hanging over them that, they just made the playoffs for the first time last year. So it almost seems like it's some kind of a culture thing at the club that they're just not able to win the big game. So they're going to have to overcome that this year. They've got a new coach, Danny Lee. They obviously spent a lot of money on this roster, getting Joe Taffeta and Paul Mullen and Luke Carty, etc. These big name Eagles. On paper, they can put together a matchday 23 that's as good as any in MLR. So can they deliver? A couple Frenchmen, Galatier and Mignot coming over, that adds as well. A lot of talent there. I agree with what Simon Cross says, that they've got a lot of pressure on them to perform. Can they do it? I guess we'll see. I would put them in that second or third spot in the East.
One thing that we didn't really touch upon is the difficulty of choosing your internationals versus the domestic allotment that you have on your rosters. So some of these teams that have a lot of international players that are very good, you still have to work within the parameters of the roster limitations. So that could weigh in too. Last but not least, the Miami Sharks, who we don't know a lot about because there's nothing on their website. John.
Vamos, Miami.
Okay, are they going to make the playoffs?
Posible.
It's French. That's not Spanish. And are they going to make the playoffs? That's what this segment is, John.
I don't know any other words in any other languages. I would go there. Yeah, they're going to be in contention probably for that last spot in the Eastern Conference. I mean, they got Pumas. How about that?
So 2 teams aren't going to qualify in the Eastern Conference. What are the 2 teams if the Miami Sharks make it?
I said they'll be in contention for a playoff spot. I didn't say they will make the playoffs.
Riding the fence. Bryan.
Yeah, I'm not super sold on this roster. I think there's shortcomings in the pack. Definitely, we've only got 3 specialist locks. Not ideal. Loaded in the back line. You mentioned the number of imports. They got a lot of imports, a lot of Argentines on the squad. They're going to have to manage them. Tomas Cabelli, if something happens to him, then they're going to have Inciarte at scrum half again. I just think they haven't put their squad together properly. There's a few holes in there. Maybe there's some late additions, but the way I'm looking at it now, it's between them and Old Glory for that last spot, that last playoff spot in the East. And it really just depends on, I guess, who wins those heads-to-heads. They do have Piusi at tight head, who's an absolute monster, but I don't know. I don't know if they have enough grunts in that tight 5 to really take it home.
All right, guys, you were exceptional in this segment, and I'm just thankful for having both of you. But before you go, just give me the name of the team as your answer. Who's going to hoist the shield and be our new champion in 2025? John.
I'll go the Houston SaberCats.
There's no new champion. Free Jacks.
The 3-peat Free Jacks. Ask Pat Mahomes about that. On that note, I want to thank you guys for coming on and making this such a pleasurable experience. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with Will Hooley of the Rugby Rundown after this.
I wouldn't like to be at the bottom of that.
You need your cleats? You need them tomorrow? If you order today by 3 p.m. New York time or noon LA time, they can have them to you tomorrow. Young, old, male, female, if you're playing on turf, if you're playing on grass, if you're playing in the rain, you're playing in the heat, they've got you covered. RugbyNow.com. Go there now.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We have the absolute, that's easy for me to say, privilege and honor. That's one word that I was trying to get out at the same time, but I'm so nervous talking to this guy. Yes, he's a male model. Yes, he's on the cover of GQ if it's still in publication, but he's also a rugby player, and now he is the media darling of the league. He has earned that title, by the way, that I just gave him, but it's Mr. Will Hooley. Will, finally, welcome to MLR Weekly.
Matt, that is probably one of the best introductions I've ever heard. I will pay you the invoice after this. Thank you.
It's all on the teleprompter, Will. It's all there. But what's not there is the fact that you, sir, were an exceptional rugby player, including stints at Exeter, Northampton Saints, and Saracens, along with, the San Diego Legion, right? So and let's not discount your time with Team USA. So you are an accomplished, well-rounded, well-traveled rugby player, and now a rugby expert in the truest sense of the word.
I think I probably am doing it like I played. I'm faking it until I make it, Matt. But doing that all right, reasonably successfully.
Yeah. And now you're insane enough to be doing this for a living in rugby in the United States. So you, sir, are now in my wheelhouse.
I don't know. I don't know if I can compete with the like yourself. As I expressed to you earlier, a cornerstone of rugby media here in the US. But look, we've all got a job to try and do, and I'm just trying to do my best.
Well, I looked a lot more like you when I started doing this, and look at me now. I'm an unmitigated disaster.
Stop. Have you still got a nice head of hair, haven't you?
Yeah.
Full head of hair?
Yeah, I just use I comb over my back hair over it. It looks spectacular.
Yeah, exactly.
I get the part on the side. It's fabulous. My wife loves that. But Will, Rugby Rundown, great show on the Rugby Network. You're with Corbs, Alex Corbacero, of course. And we got a whole nother season ahead of us of MLR, Major League Rugby. So I want to throw you right into the frying pan. Who's going to win the Shield?
Great question. And you know what? I don't want to give an easy cliche straight off the bat. You never do that in media, but I'm going to do it. This is going to be the most competitive season yet for MLR across the board. So let me just throw that in first. I'm really liking a few teams. I think some of the recruitment that's happened, I think the downfall of Dallas has then increased the squads and bettered the squads across the board. But you're asking me here and now, I do like the look of the Houston Sabercats. There's something about from last year, what they would have learned and how they went so well. 14-2, Matt. Yeah. And then they just ruined it right at the end in the playoffs. I think they learned a lot from that. I think having Pote Human in charge, fully in charge, I think might be a good thing. And they've got a couple of neat little signings.
What are you trying to say there? That Hanukkah Meyer was not...
No. I just always believe it's almost like you've got a director of rugby and a head coach. Does that sometimes always work? Maybe, maybe not. I like the fact that Pote Human's got the reins, and I think he's just going to take this team a little bit further forward. I do think they've also just selected well in that sort of transfer window. Look out for Sam Tuafua, the number 8 from Dallas Jackals. He was one of the players of the season, and even Awandi Oliver, just in case they don't have any good scrum halves, which, by the way, they do have plenty. They've got him as well. Added with a mix of various other quality across the board. They are my picks to go all the way. And I'm saying that from week 1, so that's not really picking much. Let's be honest.
It's going to make for some great rugby, though, because we can't. We used to be able to say, "Oh, they're going to suck. They're out. They're going to suck. They're out." You can't really write anybody off yet. There are the unknowns out there as well. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to talking to you more regularly, my friend. You do a great job on that Rugby Rundown, along with Mr. Corbacero. I'm a fan of both of you and the show, and I look forward to seeing you more this season.
Appreciate it, Matt. Looking forward to having you on our show as well. And yeah, here we go. MLR 2025.
Here we go, baby. And on that note, we're out of time. I want to thank Mr. Will Hooley of the Rugby Rundown, Mr. Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News, Mr. John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning, and thank you for tuning in. Please check out our other shows, including the Rugby Odds. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube, sign up for our weekly newsletter, and please join our American Red Cross Blood Donor Team. Hee hee.